In 2015, February, my husband, Avijit Roy, OP, and I were attacked by the Islamist fundamentalists. Obviously, I survived, but OP wasn't so lucky. It happened in a book fair in Dhaka, Bangladesh, the country of our birth. I used to go to that book fair as a kid with my parents. OP went there in 2012 by himself to discuss his books. He wrote to me from there. He said, "You have to come with me next time. We have to go together to see the impact we are making on the young people, the hope we are offering." So, in 2015, when our daughter was in her first year college, we traveled to Dhaka. We went to the fair most of the days. We were really, really happy. Much as I loved it, I was exhausted. 10 days later, I wanted a day off, but OP insisted. He wasn't the kind of person who insisted very often. So he also said this would be the last time we would go. So I got ready, pulling on a quick kurta over my jeans instead of wearing my beloved sari. It was a busy evening. After we were done, we walked out of the fair, walking, holding hands, talking, laughing, chatting. We called the driver, who was waiting nearby to see where he had parked. And that's when it happened. 3 young men wielding machetes attacked us, raining blow after blow of their blades over our shoulder, our bodies, our lives. I fell, lost consciousness. A few minutes later, a young man shook me awake. He was lying on the roadside in a pool of blood. People kept watching, even a policeman in the crowd. Despite my desperate plea for help, nobody came forward to help. Eventually, the young man flagged down a passing vehicle and put us in it. I was so convinced that he was kidnapping us. I kept saying over and over, "Are you going to kill us?" And he said, "No." In fact, that is the first memory I have of the attack. Everything else I told you right now have been pieced together from the pictures and the videos I saw later. I don't remember anything after he called the driver. The young man was a photojournalist. I got to know about it later. He took us to the hospital. My left thumb was sliced off. Most of the arteries and the nerves of my hands, both my hands, were cut off. I had 4, 6 to 7 inches of machete stab wounds around my head. I still suffer from chronic migraines and back pain. A triumphant tweet came half an hour after the attack from the Islamist militants, a part of Al-Qaeda of Indian subcontinent. And media reported the tweet came from London. I was medically evacuated to the States where the rest of my family lived, and series of surgeries and treatment began. Traumatized and numb, I couldn't cry. My family and friends were so scared that I would sink into depression, but I had a badass psychiatrist. He said, "Don't worry, I have seen your kind before. People grieve differently. You'll be okay." He worked with the war veterans. Obi and I questioned. We strive to understand this complex world. So it's no wonder that I started asking questions right after the attack. My first question was, why me? Why us? But I knew the answer to that question, kind of knew it. We were humanists, atheists, bloggers, and writers. We were both born in Bangladesh in middle-class, educated families, but poverty, corruption, repressive governments, and creeping religious fundamentalism was all around us. It impacted us profoundly, but little differently. I was more concerned about class-based inequality, whereas Obi wanted to promote science and fight religious prejudice. So he founded Muktamona, the first internet forum for Bengali writers like us, where they could write freely without fear. I met him online a year later, in 2002. My first post in Muktamona was criticized by a few. And I noticed the next day, someone named Avijit Roy defended my post impressively with lots of links and everything, and I was curious. I asked a friend, "Who is this guy? What is his name? How old is he?" And of course, I wasn't shy. I asked, "Is he single?" He was doing his PhD in Singapore, and I was in Atlanta, working as an engineering manager, a single mother with a 5-year-old daughter. Our emails quickly moved on to phone calls. We met halfway in Paris for our first date. We dated across continents for the next 4 years until Ovi joined us in the US. We bonded through ideas. We agreed on many, but disagreed vehemently on many others. I remember once when our daughter was 12 years old, she listened to one of our debates in Bengali very carefully and came to me and goes, "Mom, you guys have been fighting over these kind of ideas the whole time? I thought you constantly fight because you have a bad marriage." Alongside our work, we wrote. I wrote a book on evolution, but writing was of his passion. He was a prolific writer. He wrote about science, atheism, religion, humanism. He protested wars. He wrote against oppression on minorities. His writings inspired many, but at the same time, it also enraged the Islamists. They branded him an atheist blogger. They use these kind of simple narratives to gain support from their religious base. On the other hand, the so-called secular governments stay silent because they don't want to alienate their religious electorate. After the attack on us, the militants vowed to kill one blogger each month, one of those atheist bloggers. You know, though they branded us as atheist bloggers, our writing went way beyond Islam and atheism. So, a few weeks later, after the attack on us, they killed Babu. Then they attacked our dear friend, Ananto. He used to call me Didi, sister. Then they attacked and killed Niloy in front of his partner. The silence of the government, Bangladeshi government, was deafening. The impunity was so high that the militants kept attacking minorities, Hindus, Shiites, Ahmadis, Christians, and secular thinkers. But finally, after huge protests, when the government was forced to condemn those attacks, they also, to our horror, they also blamed us for our own deaths. They said, we are hurting religious feelings. They started banning books and arresting publishers and writers in the name of an old quasi-blasphemy law from the British colonial period. And the killings continued. Then they attacked two of his publishers. Dipon was killed. Tutul barely survived. Next was Zulhas, the founder of the first Bangladeshi LGBTQ+ magazine, and his friend Tonoy. You know, most of the killers haven't been arrested. But once the bystanders caught two of them, and they confessed. They don't even know what a blog was. They killed because they were instructed to do so by their leaders. Bangladeshi government got away with their inaction because they used a simple explanation to justify. They said, these are all like isolated events committed by homegrown militants. But were they really? The government was forced to act only after there was a gruesome attack on a bakery, killing 20 foreigners and locals. The killers kept sending the gruesome pictures of the killing of those innocent people all night long to ISIS. A clear demonstration that this cannot be an isolated event. The tweet after the attack on us could not have come from London if it were an isolated event. Some say that religious violence is rooted just in religion. It's only Islam and the Quran are to blame. Others say, no, it's just the Western imperial greed. Is it really that simple? Is it one or the other? Simple stories, I'm not saying simple stories are all wrong. When they're right, they actually give us only a small or partial explanation of the complex, big problem. We have seen systematic Islamization in countries like Bangladesh in the last few decades, supported by the West and, of course, the local governments. And oil money flew in. It's not a secret that the Afghan war, which was essentially a conflict between the two superpowers, worked as a launch pad for the Islamic militants worldwide. Media report says 64 of the militants' leaders in Bangladesh are actually now the Afghan war veterans, just like the leaders who ordered the attacks on us. Young people in Bangladesh are frustrated. They're frustrated with deep-rooted corruption, inequality, which is on the rise all over the world, unemployment, underemployment, and lack of hope. But on the other hand, when The strict form of Wahhabi Islam is so readily available to them, it offers them hope with the utopian sense of morality and the promise of paradise in their afterlives. Something to live and kill and to die for. Islamist violence and militancy grab the headlines today. But if you look carefully, you will see that ideological intolerances are on the rise all over the world. These are all underpinned in simple narratives. They serve a purpose. They undermine the complex stories which could lead to real change. This is why the Islamists and the authoritarian powers all over the world are so fearful of us, the online writers and activists who can actually pose a strong threat. They can challenge the repressive ideas, and actually they can resist the simple narratives. Lying in hospital bed, my first question was, why me? But as I started digging deeper, I realized terrible things happen to millions of people. If it can happen to so many people, it can also happen to me. So the real question most probably is not why me. It is why not me? And that was incredibly freeing. It encouraged me to go beyond the inner screaming of me, me, me. I could easily accept the simple narratives and fall prey to hate. I could have hated Islam, I could have hated Bangladesh, or the three attackers. But I knew that our world was more complex than that. Grappling with that complexity was at the core of my recovery. If we want to build a just and peaceful world, we need to resist the simple stories. Please understand the world, our world, in its rich, messy complexity. Hold your politicians responsible. Inform yourself, question, deepen your understanding. And support the journalists and the people who are putting their lives on the line and helping us make sense of this complex world. It matters. Oh, he was silenced. But I have a voice. Why me? Why not me? Why not you?